Alright, here we are for round number 5. It's been a slight delay in me being able to record this last match. We are given the offer of taking the play, so we will take it. Looking here at a one-land hand with a Deathblade Elite, Emergent Scathes, Mutagenic Growth, Cartouche, and a couple of Tremendous Blessings. This is the type of hand where if Deathblade Elite is good, this hand is going to be very powerful, and if it's not good, we're not going to do very much. I'm going to take the chance and keep it. I think that if we're in a matchup like Delver, Elves, Stompy, where having a Deathblade Elite is going to be powerful, we give ourselves a chance to do quite a bit of work here. So we're going to keep this hand. Our opponent's considering whether they want to mulligan at this point. Opponent has kept their 7s, will play at Plains and Deathblade Elite. And we'll see what deck our opponent is playing. So they are playing a blue deck. Very likely they're playing either Izzet Blitz or Mono Blue Delver. Leading on Preordained does not tell us which of those two decks they're playing. He puts one on top, one on bottom. Great, at this point we're going to try to play a Cartouche of Solidarity here. And that resolves. And we'll get in for 2 damage. Plays another Preordain. Puts one on top, one on the bottom. Plays a Secluded Step tapped. Okay, so at this point I'm not entirely sure what deck we're playing against. Wow, yeah, this is now kind of thrown me for a bit of a loop. I don't know what deck plays both Island and Secluded Step. It's not Tireless Tribe. They don't play Secluded Step, so we're at a bit of a I'm at a bit of a loss here on what we're actually playing against. But we're gonna put the Ethereal Armor on our Deathblade Elite. We now have a 4/4 and a 1/1 ready to attack, and we'll get in for 5 damage. Plays the Plains and plays Journey to Nowhere. So it looks like we're playing it some sort of white, blue, maybe control list. I'm not entirely sure. This is pretty unfortunate for us. Drawing a second land there would have given us the ability to leave up Emerge unscathed, and we would have been able to fight through that more effectively. But we'll keep fighting best we can. Opponent evokes a Muldrifter. Draws their 2 cards. And is passing the turn. I made a choice not to play anything there. I don't think putting Tremendous Blessing on our 1/1 is effective. We now have Laguna Band Trailblazer, and that's going to give us an effective threat as we move into our next turn. It is possible we'll be able to come reasonably close to killing them. Journey to Nowhere resolves. We're going to let it target before we cast Emerge Unscathed. And we'll give our creature protection from white. Lone Missionary resolves. Opponent's back up to 15, and plays another Preordain. Now looking at our hand, we have the ability to theoretically next turn do put 3 heroic triggers on our creature, giving it 4 power, 6, 8. We could do 8 damage, which is not enough to kill our opponent. I do like getting a Tremana's Blessing on at some point, but we are going to cast Emerge Unscathed. We'll give our creature protection from... I guess we don't want to give protection from white if we white want to put a Tremana's Blessing, or if we draw another spell. No, that's silly. We are going to put protection from white on. We won't need to cast a Tremana's Blessing this turn. Alright, draw 3rd Plains. We will play it. And we'll get in for 3 damage here. Opponent thinking about blocks, deciding maybe whether they want to block our warrior token. I think regardless, we're going to put 1 Mutagenic Growth on the Logona Band Trailblazer, give it another heroic counter. And we'll get in for 5 damage here. Okay, opponent's taking their turn number 6. Playing a Core Skyfisher, likely returning Journey to Nowhere to their hand, which is fine. That's going to allow us to put Tremana's Blessing, giving pro-white permanently. Plays the Journey. Let it enter the battlefield and target. And we'll put Tremana's Blessing on our creature. This does preclude us from being able to cast more auras on our Logona Band Trailblazer, but we do have a 2-turn clock as is, and so I'm not feeling particularly worried. Because we have the Mutagenic Growth, we'll be able to get in for 4 and then enough to kill him. Opponent's thinking about if they have responses to this. I'm not sure what responses they might have, but they're definitely giving it a consider. At this point, the only spells that would interact with us here would be something like Annul, which there's no reason to play that main deck. So this resolves. We will give protection from white. And the Journey to Nowhere does not have an effect. They do play a 2nd island. It's possible they were... it's possible they have something like a counter spell and they're feeling a little bit upset with themselves for not countering our Tremana's Blessing when given the opportunity. We now have lethal damage, which I don't see a reason not to try to go for here. Or I guess they could have a bounce spell, but it seems less likely they would have a bounce spell when they're playing things like Journey to Nowhere. It seems like you would play your hard removal instead of bounce spells. So we will go for the win here. And see if our opponent has a response. Right, and so the thought process there is, could they have something like a bounce spell? Could they have something like Vapor Snag or Snap? And certainly they could. The reason that would make me believe they don't have it is most decks that are splashing for a 2nd color away from blue are doing so partially for creatures, but partially for the removal that's being offered. And Snap and Vapor Snag are temporary solutions to problems where Journey to Nowhere is a permanent solution, so it's unlikely that these decks would want to play something like Snap. You see that more in a mono blue Delver list rather than, say, an Izzet Delver list. So kind of what we know so far is that they are a blue-white deck with some value creatures, some Journeys to Nowhere, some card draw. Let's take a look at what our sideboard has to offer us. So I would say our Sundering Growths are probably useful here as a way to get rid of his Journeys to Nowhere. I'm looking at the rest of our cards. Holy Light's not going to be particularly useful as it's only to non-white creatures. Doesn't look like they're doing much with the graveyard. Celestial Flare does not seem particularly interesting. Their creatures are not big, they're not wildly powerful. Standard Bearer is a possibility, as we might want to prevent our opponent from being able to target one of our creatures. It's also possible that they will bring in their own Standard Bearers, and this gives us a creature to target. In the case that they have a Standard Bearer, we can choose our own Standard Bearer to target instead. We don't need a pro-black creature. I don't know if we need our own Journeys to Nowhere. Their creatures are not particularly big and frightening. Lifelink doesn't seem like we're in a racing situation where we need to gain life. And Death Speaker, again, another protection from black creature. So I'm looking at Standard Bearers, and I'm looking at Sundering Growths, looking at what creatures I'd want to bring out. I think I'm interested in bringing out the Sacred Cats. Again, we're not super worried about the life gain aspect. And then they have flyers, so Crowing Skyguard becomes a little bit worse. And then looking to take out one more card, we'll take out one Defiant Strike, and we'll try this with these 4 changes. Here we are for game number 2, looking at our hand. Unfortunately, it contains no creatures, so it's going to be something we have to mulligan. Our 6-card hand has a couple creatures in it. We're happy to keep it. And we look at an Emerge Unscathed, which we are happy to keep on top. They play a Kabira Crossroads and gain 2 life. And we'll start with Plains and Algonavan Trailblazer. And we'll pass the turn. Opponent plays Island. And Lone Missionary goes up to 26 life. At this point, I'm interested in playing the Crowing Skyguard. Trying to think about how we want to play out this hand. Unfortunate thing with Emerged Unscathed and giving protection from white specifically against the white removal spells is that it will cause things like Hyena Umbra to fall off. So we have to kind of balance that a little bit. I would like to get our flyer on the battlefield though this turn. Opponent casts Preordain. They put 2 cards in the bottom. They're obviously digging for something. Plays Azorius Chancellery. Returns his island to his hand. And passes the turn. We find a Standard Bearer, which is actually quite a good one. At this point, I'm going to be interested in putting the Standard Bearer on the battlefield. It's going to protect us from removal spells, so we can play our Hyena Umbra and Standard Bearer to not worry about leaving up Emerged Unscathed this turn. It will give us the chance to protect ourselves from that first Journey to Nowhere. So let's put the Standard Bearer on the battlefield. And a Hyena Umbra. And we'll attack for 3 damage in the air. Opponent plays Aven Riftwatcher. Gains 2 life. Replays his island. We'll start with a Defiant Strike deciding where we want to Defiant Strike. It's possible we Defiant Strike the Laguna Bend Trailblazer, make it a slightly more interesting threat, and something that can't permanently be ignored. Given that he's likely to block here anyways, I think starting there with a Defiant Strike on our Trailblazer is not a bad idea. We find a Cartouche. Now, deciding where we want to put the Cartouche. Again, I like putting our Cartouche somewhere that we don't mind if we lose it. I'm trying to decide whether I want to make a bigger ground threat or whether I'm interested in making a really powerful flyer. I think making a powerful flyer is totally reasonable. I think it'll probably get through more quickly, so I think that's where we'll start. And we'll attack with the Trailblazer too, see if he's interested in blocking with his Riftwatcher. We would prefer him to block here with the Riftwatcher so that we can get in for 5. And we'll pass the turn. Opponent's back to 20. We've got him back to starting lives total. Plays an island. And casts a Muldrifter. Draws 2 cards. We draw planes, we'll play a planes, and attack for 5 damage. Chooses to block with the Muldrifter. The Aven Riftwatcher has 1 more turn on the battlefield, so he'll certainly block with it here. We're going to let this target, and we will give protection from white to our Standard Bearer. We'd like to keep it on the battlefield. Oh, interesting. Standard Bearer does not protect from Journey to Nowhere, so we learned something new. Unfortunately, we're going to have to use our Emerged Unscathed here and give protection from white. It does make our creature smaller, unfortunately, but we kind of have to do what we have to do. We'll end up with a 5/5 creature here, but not the 5/5 that we had before. And he is going to get another shot at playing the Journey to Nowhere next turn. Plays another Preordain. Kept 1 on top. So we will be interested in casting this spell. We probably will just put it on the Skyguard here. Give it pro white. That's going to let us get in for some damage. The Riftwatcher will go to the graveyard. And then we are unfortunately going to lose our Skyguard. Opponent plays a land. And another Muldrifter, back up to 5 cards in hand. This is a game that's slowly slipping away from us. We find Seeker of the Way, which we'll play. Seeker's going to give us a chance to hopefully do some interesting stuff, give us a threat that can possibly get through Dreamstalker. Finds another Journey to Nowhere. Journeys away the Standard Bearer. Plays Seagate Oracle. That he's chosen the Standard Bearer makes me wonder if he does have some instant speed effects to get our creatures with. I'm not sure what those will be, but plays a land for the turn. And another Seagate Oracle. The board's relatively gummed up. Interesting opponent choose not to attack with the Muldrifter. Can't really see a good reason not to attack with it, given you've got 4 ground creatures. We find another Plains. And we'll pass the turn for now. Plays another Crossroads, gains 2 life, back up to 19. Opponent plays Serrated Arrows. And a Seal of Removal. Okay. So that's the tech that opponent is looking for. And a reason to get rid of our Standard Bearer with Journey to Nowhere. We find another Trailblazer, we'll play it. Opponent chooses not to activate the Serrated Arrows yet. We're down to 16, opponent's at 19. Plays another Dreamstalker. Likely returning the Muldrifter. Replays the Muldrifter to gain 2 more cards, up to 4 cards in hand again. Plays a Tranquil Cove, up to 20 life. And we find a Hyena Umbra. At this point, we're likely going to have to burn a spell to get in, or to be able to rumble, like, past the Seal of Removal, so I don't really see a reason to hold a spell, unless we're hoping to draw, I guess we're hoping to draw an Emerged Unscathed, or a Tremendous Blessing, so those are 2 good reasons to wait, so we'll pause on these Umbras until we find a way to protect ourselves from that Seal of Removal. Plays a Chancellery, gets to return a land to hand. Returns a Crossroads. And we have Defiant Strike here, which we again will save. We're not under a ton of pressure. We do have a few more turns before we have to be really worried about what's going on. Opponent puts a Serrated Arrows counter on our Seeker of the Way. May make a choice to kill it this turn. And they do. Plays a Crossroads. Opponent gets in for 2 damage. Another Defiant Strike. We're going to fire off one of these Defiant Strikes here, looking for some action. See if opponent wants to use their Seal of Removal right now. They don't. They're going to let us cycle through. Find a Mutagenic Growth. And let's take another Defiant Strike. they let that go again. No point in attacking. I think if we were to fire off another spell, they would Seal of Removal to save one of their creatures, and then we're back where we started. Just a way for us to get through a little bit of damage, or get through a couple of our cards in hand, or in our deck, looking for some of those action spells that we care about. Opponent attacks us for 2, down to 10 life. We find a Cartouche. Still not a spell we're interested in casting. We'll keep passing. Opponent plays a Preordain. So again, in this spot where we're trying to find our outs based on a specific plan. The plan is to find either our last Emerged Unscathed or one of our 4 Tremendous Blessings to protect us from that Seal of Removal and allow us to start going all in on a creature and getting hopefully through with some chunks of damage. Core Skyfisher resolves, likely returning the Serrated Arrows to hand. Returns Muldrifter. And we'll draw 2 more cards. Plays a land. And a Plains. Now we are out of time, unfortunately. Now they've got a 2-turn clock, so we won't be able to kill them in 2 turns kind of under any circumstances, so we'll concede here and go on to game number 3. So given what we just saw, I'm going to bring back in the Skyguard. Still not interested in Journey to Nowhere. We'll keep this Defiant Strike back in, and we're going to take out these 2 Standard Bearers, as they were not the card we were looking for. And let's try out game number 3 of this last match, playing against some sort of blue-white deck. I'm not exactly sure what this archetype would be called. Waiting for our opponent to submit for game number 3. Thinking about this archetype, I have been impressed with Emerged Unscathed and can see why some lists were running upwards of the 4 copies. Definitely something I'll consider changing as I move forward, moving up to a 3rd or possibly a 4th copy. The rest of the deck has been pretty powerful. I've been happy only having the 1 Secluded Step. I think that we don't flood very often with this list. We flooded a little bit last game, but the game kind of got away from us for different reasons. But I think that we are pretty committed to wanting to have the first couple lands that we play come into play untapped, and we're playing a very low land count, so we're not so interested in getting through our lands. If we were playing 20 or 21 lands, I could see playing 3 or 4 Secluded Steps, as you do want to hit those first couple lands, but then you want to cycle your way through the rest. We would like to play first for game number 3. We look at a hand that has 4 threats and only 1 way to trigger, but I think that's totally fine. We'll keep this hand and try to get through pretty quickly here. We'll start with a turn 1 Laguna Bound Trailblazer. Opponent plays a Tranquil Clove, goes up to 21 life. And now we've got to decide whether we want to try to get an Akroan Skyguard on the battlefield or a Seeker of the Way on the battlefield. I think we'll start with the Skyguard. We'll pass the turn. No attack for 0 there. Opponent casts Preordain. Puts 2 cards on the bottom. And plays an Azorius Chancellery. Returns his land to hand and is now going to have to go to discard. Gets rid of Momentary Blink, which is interesting. It actually makes sense with some of the stuff they're trying to do. Okay, so now we have to decide how aggressively we want to go in on our creatures here. I don't think putting all of our stuff on one creature makes a lot of sense. We're going to start with a Defiant Strike on our Skyguard. See what we draw. And then let's put an Umbra over here. And we'll get in for 5 damage. I like spreading out our damage here because if they do have a Journey to Nowhere, we would like to not be completely blown out by it. And they do have the Journey, and they're going to take the Trailblazer, which is fine. So now we, so this exile is just a creature, so it doesn't exile a permanent, so we're not worried about this. I think we're just going to go in on our Skyguard, try to get our opponent dead quickly. Attack for 7. And we are hoping they just don't have another Journey, which they have a Dreamstalker, which will allow them to Journey right now anyways. Unfortunately, this ends up being a pretty good strategy against us. So we'll play another Skyguard here and pass the turn. We do have a Sundering Growth, so we can remove that Journey to Nowhere from the battlefield permanently, or hopefully permanently, if we need to. Opponent's ability to blink their Journeys to Nowhere is actually really powerful against our strategy in particular, because resetting our creatures down to 1/1 flyers is nearly as effective as killing them over and over again, so you don't even need to worry about actually killing them permanently. Let's put our second Akroan Skyguard on the battlefield. And pass. Alright, let's see what this card is. So, Vanishing 3, when Reality Acid leaves the battlefield, Enchanted Permanent's controller sacrifices it. Okay, so they may have a way to blink this, and that would return it to hand, and that would kill our creature right away. So, that's what they're doing here. Right, so that's a Reality Acid and a combo. That's really cool. We luckily have Sundering Growth, so we'll be able to fight against that a little bit. Or, actually no, sorry, because Reality Acid, when it leaves the battlefield, so even if we Sundering Growth it, that's not going to have the effect that we want it to. So this is maybe one of their their big engines against creature decks is the ability to slowly destroy every creature on the battlefield this way. Right, okay. Finally see what's going on here. That explains the Seals of Removal. We will play a Deathblade Elite. Not feeling like we're in very good shape. We may just destroy this Reality Acid if they have a way to try to return it to their hand. We would like to just end this, even though it's done pretty remarkable damage to us. I don't really see a way for us to come back from in this game at this point, but opponent does choose to attack here for 2. We'll take it. Cast Momentary Blink. We're going to destroy this Reality Acid. And they now get to return their Muldrifter, which is fine, but they don't get to keep Reality Aciding us over and over again. Play another Deathblade Elite if we can find some ways to make our creature a little bit bigger. We might be able to start killing some of their creatures, finding a way back into the game. And Lone Missionary brings them back up to 14. And we find a Plains, and we'll pass the turn. So at this point, I'm not really sure what we're going to be able to do to try to win this game. Something like a Tremana's Blessing with Pro Blue on our Akroan Skyguard might be a start. Give us a 3/3 flyer that, or 2/2 flyer that won't be able to be stopped by the Reality Acid, but it seems pretty far-fetched that we're going to be able to do anything about this at this point. Opponent plays Preordain. And puts 2 cards on the bottom. Another Seagate Oracle enters the battlefield. And another one. Still no attacks. Mutagenic Growth. It's potentially a powerful card, but not one that we can use right now. Opponent finds another Reality Acid, and we're likely going to have to Sundering Growth again to get rid of it. At this point it's now 2 for 1 dust, but doesn't get to 3 or 4 for 1 us. Opponent's going to get to return something like Muldrifter to their hand, or Seagate Oracle to their hand and draw more cards. Yeah, they choose Muldrifter there. Cast the Lone Missionary up to 19 life. And they're now getting in with some creatures, so I think this is now where the game is really gotten away from us. We'll take 4. We draw another land. And at this point, I think we are just a couple turns away from losing the game. And they cast their Muldrifter to draw some cards. Though I don't dislike the way that I played this game. I think that pushing all in on trying to kill them quickly with an Acheron Skyguard was probably correct. I don't want to give them time to set up like this. I can't beat their board when it looks this way. I'm just going to get them to use their Seal of Removal here. Probably could have done that at blocks since they would have done the same thing, but at this point we are now at 4 life. We would have been at 6 instead, but still facing lethal damage next turn with no way to get 19 damage through. We'll take a look at our last draw step though, just for completion's sake. And a Hyenimra will spell our doom. Though it looks like we will not be winning this last match. We'll end this league 3-2. Thank you so much for watching, and definitely leave any comments or questions you have in the comments. Have a wonderful day, everybody.